Funny story. I'm gonna tell this funny story. It's gonna be a little embarrassing now. Don't judge me. So in NTBA meetings and most meetings, I'm usually the only black guy, right? So we're at this hotel. I walk in. I see two black guys, sitting down in the cut, but they were like underdressed. It was just like, and I'm over here. And I'm like, okay. So I noticed them. Black people, we kind of always want to catch that eye contact.
Yeah,
like we're here.
yeah.
Let's talk. So I couldn't get the eye contact. I was like, all right, let me just go to the back. But the way they was just sitting, just kind of to the side, I was like, oh, they're not here for the conference. They're chilling. They probably, know somebody here, work here. I'm like, that's sad. Why do we think that at the conference?
Yeah.
So I'm over here thinking that. So next thing you know, they came up and speak. I was like, oh snap, they're speakers. And then the story was so profound and it touched my heart. And I was just back there like, yeah, we in here. So I would love for you guys to get a taste of the story. Today we're going to talk about redlining. We're going to look at redlining as it exists still today. It still happens. We're going to look at redlining and other elements as it pertains to disaster relief as well. Laura Clemens is going to kind of talk about that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to let my speakers come on. I'm going to be sitting down taking notes myself because I'm just excited to be an audience member just like you guys. So please give a warm round of applause for Mr. JB.
I'm underdressed again. This is how I dress up, so. Thank you all for having me. Just a quick note, on the thing it says my last name is like Ishia or something like that. Well, I don't know whose name that is. My last name's Williams. But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I was like, there's two JBs speaking. What's up? But I won't take too long. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be able to, kind of share my story, but not just my story. It's our story. All of us at East Point, all of us on the east side of Oklahoma City, and I have a few of my friends who I work with here. And so once we kind of get into it, I'm going to invite one of my friends up. But yeah, that's me. One of the, I guess for me, one of the essence of how I got involved in everything I do, whether it's development, whether it's restaurants, everything started with art and with music, and so. And if you kind of look at how we're developing East Point, it's very art influenced. And also the art is a reflection of our community. The art is also a reflection of our history. And the art is also a reflection of our future, the things we want to see, because we want in 5 years, and 10 years, and 20 years for our development, our community to still look like us. Does that make sense? We want not only for it to still look like us, but whenever people come, I want them to know we were there as well. So, this was behind me sitting here, I did after George Floyd, I did a big art installation right on Northeast 23rd and had huge letters, and it simply said, "Stop killing us." And we had it out there from the afternoon until it turned nighttime. And so the idea was, this is the community that the police will encounter the most black people in Oklahoma City. And so whenever they drove through our neighborhood, they saw in big, bright letters, "Stop killing us." And so, like I said, the essence of everything for me that I do starts with art. It starts with music and also my community. Okay, but it's not working. There we go. So, this is for, I'm not sure if anybody's been to East Point yet, but this is in essence kind of how it looked most of my life. And this picture was taken, probably 30 or 40 years before I was even born. All right, and this is how it looked most of our life. And, I show you this so you can kind of see why it's important is it's important because I'm 38 years old, and this development that we're seeing, East Point, is the first development in our community in my lifetime like this. Right, so for over 30 years, the first time we've ever seen retail development anything like this in over 30 years. Oh, it might be the battery. Okay, so there's another picture of East Point. I feel like it's one of those remotes, you gotta go. So, this was the opening of our restaurant, Eastside Pizza House. And before I did anything, before I had a restaurant, before I came here, actually, I was in another meeting about Black businesses and Black-owned businesses. And we were talking about the challenges of having a Black-owned business. And one of the challenges is redlining, right? Trying to, for a Black business, somebody trying to get capital, right? Well, I started working on Eastside Pizza House about 4 years ago, and I had no idea what the word capital meant, right? And whenever I was starting to try and find people to help me get capital, I remember a conversation I had with a lady. Some of y'all might know her. I told her I'm trying to figure out how to get money. And she said, what you need is capital. I said, yeah, I need that, right? Whatever that, yeah, that's what I need. I need that. And she said, well, how people usually get capital is, they find 3 or 4 friends they went to college with, and they put their money together. They'll borrow 10,000 from this friend, 20 from this friend, and before you know it, you have capital and you can start your business. And and when she said that to me, I realized, she had no idea who I was, or where I came from, right? But it also let me know that she didn't understand that that's not how it works for people, and because I don't have 10 friends I can call for $10,000. I don't know anybody with $10,000, right? And so that's how I started to learn about what redlining was. So, okay, now we want to, go to banks and ask banks to borrow money, right? And the thing I learned about that was, you might walk into a bank and ask this bank for, and we saw it. I know Nikki was there, I know Quentin was there, I'm sure DeAndre's been there. Early on in this project, asking for money, and the response or the idea is that, oh, well, we just, that's just not something we do, lending money to the east side, right? Well, businesses just don't do well over there. But remember, I said this was the first development like this in my lifetime. So if businesses don't do well over there, it had to be like way before I was even born, right? To even know, because we hadn't even tried it, right? So all these different excuses and all these different things. And so I started to think, well, before I just said, it's because I'm Black, right? I had to put it in perspective, right? And so the perspective I gained from trying to understand what this redlining was doing was, it let me know that this person sitting in front of me, who I'm asking for money, they may not be saying that they can't lend it to me because I'm black, but several years and decades before, somebody said it, right? And because that person said it several years before, then it just got passed down, until it got to me. Now, years ago, it was because we just don't lend to black. But by the time you get to 2022, it's changed to, that's just not what we do. Right? So I had to understand those things. And I'm telling you, it was hard, it was difficult. And you learn that sometimes people aren't racist, they can just be bad at their jobs, right? Right? And I'm learning those things. And so we had all these meetings, you know, all these different people got together to figure out why this was happening. How can we make this work, right? And the cool thing was that there were other people who understood that, who didn't like me, who didn't look like me. And yeah, it was the cool thing, but it also kind of sucked that me saying the same thing to somebody didn't matter until somebody who was white had to come along and say it, right? And so, moving forward, we stepped into this idea and I'm only speaking for my community and our development. We stepped into this idea of, okay, we're finally seeing things happen. We're finally seeing people, our city, you know, city council, all these different, you know, entities taking interest in a part of town that has been cool my entire life, right? But then something happens, for instance, we get the thunder, right? The thunder coming to Oklahoma City. And then all of a sudden, the east side, for my entire life, which was the east side, now it's east of downtown. And then you know what? You can get to a Thunder game faster than you can get to another game if you live in Yukon, right? So now they start moving and coming here to our side. I remember I was telling a story earlier that I remember when I was about 19 or 20, and I was at Ralph Ellison Library, and there was a town hall meeting about putting sidewalks on our streets on Northeast 23rd. Finally getting sidewalks. I remember being like 19, 20 in the library that day. I'm 38, and we're just now getting those sidewalks. And what that tells me is, right, those sidewalks probably aren't made for me. So what I'm saying is that we're seeing all these things we're seeing all these things that were affected by, that started with redlining. And I'm gonna say a few more things. I want to invite my brother Quentin up real quick. Can you come real fast, Quentin, to kind of add on, because he's been a part of our development. And like I said, I do music. I had no idea, you know, I would open up a restaurant. I had no idea I'd be involved in development. I had no idea. But I saw my community going through such a rough time being a food desert. I wanted to bring food to my community, right? Not only that, I wanted to bring a cool concept they could be proud of and appreciate and take ownership of to my community. You know, because if I didn't do it, other people will. And I learned a long time ago that what you do for us, without us, you do to us. What that means is that people want to come in and jump in and help, and I can do this and do that and do this and do that for you in your community. But the problem is that for Black people in this country, from day one, we have been told where to live, how to raise our kids, how to worship, where to go to school. So what we want to do, especially with developments like East Point, is decide on our own. Quinn.
JB's really modest. He's an artist and he translates his work through rap and also through installations like that. And he also puts on a lot of artists in the community. Grammy Award winning artist. Come on, by the way. So my name is Quentin Hughes. I've known JB for quite a long time now. And you know, while JB is born and raised Northeast Oklahoma City, I'm actually a transplant, originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, but we're from a community very similar, right? So when I came to college at the University of Oklahoma and graduated, I had opportunities to travel around the country and really would see, you know, the same thing that was happening in my hood, so to speak, happening in other hoods, pretty much on every Martin Luther King Boulevard. And I always wanted to figure out if there was a way to see a community revitalized, but the folks that existed there before being benefactors of that, of those efforts later, right? And so after college, I came and lived and worked and served in Northeast Oklahoma City during a time. First off, shout out Mickey Nice. Sorry, our councilwoman, shout out Julie Coffey and other folks who are doing amazing work in Northeast Oklahoma City. I came out of college during a time when there was a blight study commission for Northeast Oklahoma City that really determined that most of the area that JB was speaking about was blighted, and that created a pathway for then what would be a tax increment finance district that would encourage outside investment and development in Northeast Oklahoma City. And so I was a board member for the Black Chamber of Commerce, and I was invited to become a part of this group that was essentially there to vet the outside projects that were coming in, right? To be a voice for the community, to say, oh, you know, check this box, check this box so it does not. And it really didn't matter what we said, even though we would say things. It really didn't matter what we said. It was just kind of a part of the process. And so that group of folks, it was helpful because we became knowledgeable about what real estate development was. You know what I'm saying? And how this thing was going down, and we decided together we wanted to be more than a group that vets the projects. We wanted to be participating in this revitalization, right? We wanted to be catalysts for that participation, not only for ourselves but for the community that existed, right? And so we formed a nonprofit organization called Northeast OKC Renaissance Inc., where that's actually our mission, which is to be a catalyst for ethical and place-based community development in Northeast Oklahoma City. And so we kind of started. We started our work by sharing the information with the community through like a place-making block party type setting. So it was very entertaining and brought folks together, things for kids and families, music, so on and so forth. But we also had what I've learned that CNU calls a charrette, a low-budget charrette that was meant to bring those same developers to the block party, those same developers that we were vetting their projects for, to allow the community to vet, right? And so they set up a table where they have to share what their work was, and the community would come through, ask questions, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of where we started, and now we've kind of evolved to a point where now we've started to have programming that is meant to train neighbors and folks in the community to become developers and teach them how to participate in this development work. But along that road is where East Point kind of came about. And so, our organization, like I said, we wanted to be a catalyst for a certain type of development. And what JB and some other folks around the community, Sandy and Thompson, and Pivot, which was that group of folks that JB had worked with that understood, that came in and said, yo, like, it's redlining going on. That had to translate that. They decided to set their sights on this, what we thought would be a catalyst project. And it was really dope in that, they wanted to have tenants that were a reflection of the community. They wanted to provide those tenants ownership in the building, so that it kind of offset what could happen if that popularity, that value, that land increased. And they also utilize community members to help fill the spaces and provide them those brokerage fees rather than a broker, which was dope. And so Northeast Renaissance saw that as an exemplar of the type of development we would want to be seen. Like if there was going to be outside development coming in, we wanted there to be that type of partnership, allyship. I know they got erased earlier this morning. We wanted that to be a model for the type of development that would need to be done, that was going to be brought in. But at the same time, those developers were dope enough to bring us along so that we could learn alongside them, so that when the next deal opens up, like there was minority leadership in that, and then they were a service provider. And so that was so dope about East Point. But what also we learned is that redlining was so embedded, is that when they went to even try to go get the financing to build or to rehab this space on the east side, they were turned down by 20, 30 banks? Yeah. So they couldn't get financing, and they had been doing really complex deals on the other side of the highway. They had done a number of really complex deals, but they were also turned down because, as JB said, it had been translated to we just don't live there, right? So it took so much momentum, and I want to shout out Councilman John Pettis. He's the one who ignited the whole Northeast Renaissance TIF, our committee, which led to that development. But even once they were able to get financing to get started, we had to rally to go help get that tax increment financing for the development. We had to rally for all types of other incentives to be used for this development, just to make the economics work. And once those economics work, then I forgot one part. They also had to borrow enough to do the tenant improvements for the businesses inside of the space, because we knew that redlining was going to keep them from being able to get loans to do their own build-outs, right? So they had the foresight to try to borrow enough to be able to offer up to $60 a foot in tenant improvements, right? However, what we found is that it cost more than 60 cents a foot. You know what I'm saying? To build out a space in the way that it needed to be. So I happen to be one of those business owners. We own Kindred Spirits, which is a gathering space in a bar that's meant to be for those pioneers, those like-minded pioneers of the future in Northeast Oklahoma City. But as we went, we collected 5 professionals, homeowners, college educated. It took us 2 years to borrow $130,000 to build out our space. 2 years going through bank after bank after bank. We could not borrow that money. So I was like, we should just all enroll in the master's program. We got student loans, and then you know what I'm saying? But those are just examples, and that pushed us back. Like JB was working 4 years on Eastside Pizza House. And he's so modest. Like, Eastside Pizza House is the dopest pizza place in Oklahoma City. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you haven't ordered from there and tried to come over there, you should. It's the only place you're gonna find melanated crust. Ask about it. So anyway, it took us that time, right? And so now we finally do get money. We complete the build out. We have to go through all of that process, and then COVID hits. You know what I'm saying? And so there's even more to that. So it's just that history, that redlining continues to have residual effects. And now we're at a point where we probably set the market on 23rd Street, right? Through all of the work that we've done, and extended so much of our capacity towards it. It made the not only set comps for others who have access to capital to be able to go get loans and buy the land around us before we can develop it, right? But we've also made it attractive to them because we've activated it. So that's the double-edged sword of the work that we're doing, right? So now we're trying to figure out, I asked the question earlier, like what are we doing in advance to try to proactively avoid that displacement? Like she said, you gotta own the land. Well, what does it take to own the land? Capital. And who's getting the capital? Who's already got the capital, right? And who's struggling for 2 years to get the capital? Right. So those are the things that we have to be addressed right now because the market is not waiting for community planning and engagement. And so that's really the struggle that we're trying to grapple with here in Northeast Oklahoma City, and I'm sure communities like ours on every Martin Luther King Boulevard, right? So we're trying to activate and improve, but we're still trying to keep the market at bay so that it can be developed internally. So those are the things we're grappling with, and if anybody has solutions to share, please.
Well done.
So can I get an amen on that?
Can we get an amen? Give these two brothers a round of applause, please. Man, listen, I'm no stranger to adversity and to persevere, but the theme of this is resilience together, right? What these brothers are enduring and to see it happen is just a model example of resilience. Like to be turned down so many times, to have so many doors closed in your face, to have obstacle after obstacle, and they're still here trying to keep making it happen. I don't know if I'm built like that. So I stand on the shoulders of these individuals. So we're gonna keep the party going. We're gonna make a transition and talk a little bit about redlining as it pertains to disaster relief. Because often when we think about redlining, we always think about, it's the most common in real estate and us trying to acquire things. But what about when it comes to disaster relief funds? When things actually happen to our communities and these monies are being redirected. So that's what we're going to kind of explore today. But so far, I want to do a temperature check. Are you guys liking these conversations, these topics? Okay.
Best thus far.
Thus far, so good. Okay.
I said the best one.
The best one. Okay, I'm just going to need you to say that while we're recording because I'm working on something. Okay, I'm working on something. We're going to get some commitments going. Congress 2.0. Just throw it out there. Just throw it out there. Tech support. Mr. Alex, if you can come up.
Tech support is coming.
Tech support is on its way. It's on its way.
While you get the slides to work.
All right. So I'm gonna let her get started. Please give a warm round of applause. Welcome to Miss Lauren Clemens.
I just want to say how absolutely thankful I am to Brzezinski and Brian for pulling together the Black Caucus because it is long overdue, and thank you so much for this. Can we give them a huge round? Yes. I'm so excited about the conversations that I finally see happening. 10 years of being so rarely the only one in the back of the room heckling CNU that it is not doing what it commends that it is doing. And so I am constantly making everyone in the room very uncomfortable, except for like the one or two people that are like, we're with you. Yeah. So I'm going to continue on that journey in calling out CNU because while the panel last night talked about, thank you so much, Well, the panel last night talked about, one of the questions was, what can CNU be doing better? What can we be doing better? I've been coming to CNU for 10 years. I am from Birmingham, Alabama. I am not used to going to any meetings where I am not the only white person in the room. That is like a place of comfort to me. And then I moved to Austin, Texas, and it was terrifying because I was like, where are all the black folks? Like, I don't understand. I work in disaster recovery. I became a federal policy expert after tornadoes hit Alabama in 2011 because they decimated my state, 67 tornadoes in one 24-hour period. 67 in one 24-hour period. At the peak of the disaster, we had over 1,000 people missing and unaccounted for. Disasters do not hit big communities because there are not that many big communities. We love to talk about climate change as it relates to the coast. We love to talk about hurricanes, and when I say we, I mean the media. The media loves a named storm because it hits big cities and they can hype it up for a week, whereas most of the disasters in this country are inland, they're flooding, it's a rainy Wednesday, and they are hitting black communities. And nobody cares, except for the black communities. But this is not new. And I hear all the time, whether it was the tornadoes in Alabama in 2011 that hit Pratt City and Birmingham, I hear the well-intentioned white folks that came in to help plan and recover say, well, why don't they just move? So I was on the AIA, if you ever go to any of their conferences, they will usually espouse the success that they had in Birmingham during their planning in the aftermath of our tornadoes. And it was a successful process. A lot of people did show up. Most of the people were over 60, but it was successful in many ways. There were many things that were problematic. One was the constant question of why don't we just move them? And so I was on the team that said, why? People don't want to move because those are generational homes where when we had freed slaves and their family was allowed to own land for the first time ever, it is that land. So they're sort of attached to it. When I work in disasters, the other thing that I found is redlining it's not just redlining. That's like the catch-all term for all of the terrible things that the federal government and the state government and the local government has perpetually done to black communities to put black people in harm's way. Whether that is lack of water, quality air to breathe into your lungs, or land that you do not get flooded on, or tornadoes that do not rip through your community at the order of magnitude of 1 every 10 years. We have put black communities in the highest risk places, and that has done several things. One, generational loss of wealth. If you have a home on one side of town and your family has owned that home for 3 generations and it was in a nice neighborhood when it started 3 generations ago and it has continued to get nicer today, that home is worth a whole lot of money. And in this land, wealth is by land ownership. However, if you are on the other side of town where your family was allowed to have land long before any of us that were in this room were around, your family has seen loss of value, loss of wealth. So not only do you personally have loss of wealth, you do not now have a home that is worth anything. You actually have lost not just thousands of dollars, not just hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your family has been robbed of millions of dollars. I think that's problematic. And this generational loss of wealth is not something that is in the past. It is something that is today. We are bringing up new generations of children that are going to one day be the grandparents of their grandchildren who are still in the cycle, and that is not okay with me. If you want to take out your phones, you can keep in touch with me by apparently holding your camera up to this magic little box, and all of my contact information will come up, because that is going to be very important when we get to the end as to what I'm going to ask you to do. I have been yelling about these problems here at CNU for 10 years. I am so glad to see so many more people finally this year for the first time, seeing people on stage, all black panels on stage. Thank you. Thank you. Finally, we are getting deep into the equity conversation, except it's about us, not without us. I'm involved in a whole lot of things with disaster recovery. There's not activism-related situation that comes up that I am not all about getting involved in. I am all about overthrowing the government, and I don't care if that's local, state, or federal. That is my jam. The system is broken, and I'm tired of it, and I have spent the last 10 years teaching people how to hack the system, and now I've decided to just overthrow the system. And I'm going to need all of you to help me do that, because I am not kidding. I am actually hell-bent and intent on changing the laws of the federal government within the next year, because we are out of time. We do not have time to wait any longer. Renters are seen as less than. That is a big problem. That has, we know, racist roots, but the great thing is these days it has transcended race, and now we have brown and black communities that do not want renters either. So when we are packaging in the ancestral racism into our own cultures, that is problematic. So I've got an initiative that I'm working on, Renters with Roots, to showcase the stories of the family members and community members that sit next to you at church, but for who you do not believe should have access to affordable, beautiful housing simply because they are renters. That is also not okay. I am writing the Doers Guide because I believe that other people need a manual. These Doers Guides have been reduced into zines that are like 22, 25 pages of guides of how you can get shit done today. I don't want Congress to meet and talk about it anymore. I want to do stuff today. I started a foundation, which was called the Collaborative Community Foundation. It turns out I was running my for-profit company as a nonprofit, and I got woke about that, and I transferred it into a foundation where it should have been all along. And I recreated a new company just this year called Force of Nature, because that's what people call me all the time. Oh, that Laura, she's a force of nature. So I want to know, you should know what you're getting when you hire me. It's all this, and this does not sit down, and this does not get quiet. Amy knows. Amy knows. The system connected with disaster impacts are perpetuating the harms that you see in redlining. You think it's bad? Oh, it's way worse than you imagine. Multiply it by tenfold. What all is broken? Well, let's run down the list. In case any of you are not aware, sadly enough, we had someone ask in a session yesterday, redlining, is that still around?
Yes.
I'm going to give y'all a hint of what the gender and race of that person was.
Right. Old white man.
Middle-aged white man, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in case you haven't heard, redlining is not a thing of the past. It is an active thing of the present, and unfortunately, it is a big part of the future, and that is what we have to change.
Yeah.
What is broken? Location. We've already talked about that. And it's not black and brown, it is black communities that are in the highest harm. They are receiving disasters at a much higher rate of impact than any other types of neighborhoods. That is not okay. Risk, that's wrapped into it. Except risk, we want to talk about vulnerability. Those that have the least ability to recover are the ones who we have robbed of generational wealth. Insurance. You can't get it, you can't afford it, you can't afford to keep it, and if you don't have it, there are a lot of problems. Also, with insurance, when you have family homes, let's start with when most people, white, upwardly mobile people, I grew up poor in rural Alabama, on the top of a mountain in a single wide trailer. We owned our land. It was in the woods. I was, as you know, one of my friends says, raised by wolves. It was dogs, not wolves, but you know, you get the point. Like him, I don't understand anything about like money and investments and financing and how people just walk in a room and like call 10 of your friends. And when I was unemployed, my house was foreclosed on and bank was calling and everybody was calling. They were like, don't you know somebody that can help you out? I was like, we don't know the same people. No, I do not. I am not related to somebody who's just gonna write me a check and fix my problems. With family-owned homes, if you get a mortgage, if you go to buy a house and you get a mortgage, you're required to carry flood insurance if you are in a flood zone, and we'll get into how broken that system is later. So you are required to carry flood insurance. If you don't have a mortgage, like say if that land has been in your family for a lot of generations, you don't have flood insurance. If you ever have to take advantage of federal assistance through a major disaster declaration through FEMA, and you get assistance one time of the order of magnitude of maximum amount of money of $30,000, that is your one bite at the apple, and then you must in perpetuity for forever and ever and ever. Anyone that ever owns that land must retain flood insurance forever and ever, but you can't afford it. And so the next time that you have another flood, which you will inevitably have, You cannot get federal assistance, and there is literally nothing that you can do. And the good news is that because of the valuation of your home is so low, you cannot get any money lended to you in order to fix your home. So then people start driving by saying, look at that side of town, they just don't care. They don't care about their homes. They just let them run down, they. Look at how they are living over there. It's terrible. Who would live like that? Probably somebody that's been hit by 3 disasters in 18 months. Wealth. We've talked about generational loss of wealth, land and home values. Let's talk about appraisers. Appraisers are one of the hidden figures of the oppressive racist system that we are currently in. And it's insane because I discovered that appraisers are like unnamed, invisible people inside of the system. It's not the banks, it's the appraisers. The appraisers tell the bank what it's worth. They're the ones deciding, ooh, no, we don't like that side of town. And I have met a lot of appraisers. Again, anyone want to guess about the race and gender of most appraisers? If you want to look at how best to change the system, become an appraiser. Go get a job as an appraiser. Raise all of your children up to go be appraisers. Because as soon as we have people that are putting forth appraisals that take into consideration, when we have appraisers that look like the communities in which they are appraising land, then we will start making a little bit of headway, maybe. Mathematical formulas, let's talk about. People, the media, the national media loves to say, carry news stories like, oh, is FEMA racist? Well, I mean, the organization is not actually racist. The math is sort of racist. The way that you get a federal disaster declaration in order to have resources with which to utilize to rebuild your city hall and your fire departments and your police stations and your homes is a federal disaster declaration, a major disaster declaration. That is a monetary formulation that goes into effect for the state to be able to ask not just the federal government, but the president and the president alone to please give you a major federal disaster declaration. Then you have all of the resources of all the nonprofits and all of the resources of the federal government there to assist you. It is a mathematical formula based on the value of damages. If the value of the homes and structures is less, the value of the damages to repair them is less. Wealthy neighborhoods can be impacted on the order of magnitude the same as poor, disinvested neighborhoods, and there can be a disaster declaration of one and not the other. And I'm going to get a lot of heat from my federal partners, but this is the thing. I used to work inside of FEMA. The people on the inside of the system hate the system as much as the people on the outside of the system. People that work for FEMA are good Americans trying to do their best within a broken system that we all know is broken. Who here has been directly or indirectly by somebody that you know or love impacted by a natural disaster? Who here has, raise your hands, high, raise them high. Look around. Who doesn't know that the system is broken? How many people did the system work for? Raise your hand if you saw the disaster recovery system work properly. Oh, it's working properly. But it doesn't work for me, and it is not working for you, and I say we are done with that, and it is time to change it because we are out of time. This is a community that I'm working in, and I'm not going to say the name or the state because it's not important, because this is everywhere in the United States. We are averaging a major federal disaster declaration once every 5 days. They are not named disasters, they are rainy Wednesdays in the middle of inland America, and they are in black neighborhoods, and it does not make the national media. Once a week, 30 to 60 counties are impacted by a major disaster, and you never hear about it. Why? Where's my magic little pointer? Do I have a pointer?
Yeah.
How do I point? I'll just point with my finger.
Okay.
Residential neighborhood, you can't even see rooftops. This was Harvey. Harvey was not an unpredictable, magical, never to happen again situation. Sandy was not a magical, never to happen again situation. The disasters that are happening every single week are increasing in intensity, and they are hitting the same communities over and over and over and over and over again. And if you have time over a drink, I will show you a video of one of the women who stood in front of her house and said, I thought I was retiring. I can't retire now because my home has been hit not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times in 15 years. 5. Do you think she chose that life?
Right.
Why don't you move? With what money to where? This is my family. They all live here. My community is here. My social cohesion is here. My strength, my heart is here. Where do you want me to go? And it's not just my home, it's all of my family members. We can't even help each other. So the residential neighborhood, this is just in 15 months. Harvey happened to have been the 3rd within 15 months. That's not okay. Well, Dr. Natch, I'm a lot of fun at parties. This is what it looks like. Welcome to Redlining 2022. Welcome to the future of your communities. This is a typical house. This is somebody who loves their home, who takes care of their home. When I went to this community and I rolled through this neighborhood is predominantly black, a little bit Hispanic, but predominantly black. I rolled through this neighborhood and I wept in my car as I looked at 2 old men that must have been in their 80s. One in a rickety wheelchair and one with a pull-up chair outside of his home. And I will probably cry again right now. And they were helping each other fix the outside of the house. This is 3 floods in 18 months. You can't recover from that. None of us, even those of us that understand how to get capital stacked, who can recover from that? This is the other side of the disaster. These are my babies. Look at these beautiful children. I'm a former school teacher. So for me, we are really not paying attention to not only loss of wealth generationally, but trauma, generational trauma. And thank you for the panelists last night in finally talking about trauma. It doesn't matter about giving a person a beautiful home if you do not want to talk about loss and loss and loss. And these children are in a school system that is not testing well. I can't imagine why. They have fired 2 superintendents because these children do not test well. I can't imagine why. I know children that are in high school that have lost everything 3 times. Now, I wonder who they will become in the future. What changes will they make in their life? Will they want to own a home? Will they want to own anything? I believe that we are already seeing a shift in this as we see young people not wanting to hold on to things anymore. They want to have experiences. They want to have places where people can come together. They want fellowship. They want music. They want food. They want culture. They don't want stuff. Maybe a phone, and by the way, do not hate on them for that because with that comes a sense of safety and survival. When you have something that looks like this all the time, at least the thing of value in your life you can stick in your pocket and take with you. So these babies, this is the thing that should shake us all. They are the ones that deserve better, and they are the ones that are hopeful and optimistic. They are the ones that I work with to talk about youth-led city building, because they are the ones that are like, let's just get a place where we can come together. Let's take this downtown square. Their parents and grandparents are like, they don't want people that look like us in the square. They don't want people that look like us in downtown. These kids are like, so? Let's just build some benches and go sit downtown. This is us building benches. Look at these benches that they built. Turns out if you get some, pallets and paint and hammers and nails and you work with the Boys and Girls Club, and I will tell you that the downtown organization, we made a whole bunch of these in preparation for the wine fair after the disaster. And I will say that there was a downtown organization that a year and a half later paid to have all of these benches removed. Paid. Didn't call me and say, hey, Laura, you know anybody that wants these benches? I will be like, yeah, and literally everybody. No, paid to have them removed, thrown away, disposed of. It was heartbreaking to these children who had put all of that into that. Locational risk, why not just move? We've already talked about that. Problems. Well, what's the solution? To me, climate reparations. Oh, y'all knew I wanted to throw out that word, didn't you? Y'all should have seen that coming. Climate reparations. And I'm not messing with you. This is real to me. Climate reparations are about the financial, measurable, calculatable harm that is being done to black landowners actively today. We don't need to go back 6 generations. Today, we can calculate it today. How many of you have seen or been involved in or heard about somebody involved in a buyout program? Anybody? Oh man, y'all are missing out. You're going to talk about the robbing of wealth. So with a buyout program, it's when you live in a high-risk area and your city cares so deeply about you that they want to move you out of harm's way, and they go to the state who goes to the Fed and they get a hazard mitigation project and they get a lot of money and they want to buy you out of your home so that they can hand you a check and you're welcome and you can go and buy a home somewhere else. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. So they go around and they get comps for your home. And then they hand you a check for a comparable home. They did not take into consideration what your home would have looked like if for 3 generations y'all had been adding on to that home, and for all the money that you had to pay to keep replacing things, drywall after drywall, bed after bed, refrigerator after refrigerator. How nice could your house have looked? 2nd floor, expansion, pool in the back? Comps for what? Reparations, the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. Let's go back. Does that look like we have wronged someone? That feels pretty wrong to me. That this person's home has flooded 5 times. And that it was known that it was in a flood zone when they were put into that land in the first place. This isn't new. We knew it at the time. Did I do it? No. Did the current mayor do it? No. Does that mean that it's not still actively going on? No. It's happening now. We can calculate this risk. So what do we do about it, Laura? You got us all riled up. Now what do we do? You demand change now. How, Laura? Well, I will tell you that I'm just a little girl from rural Alabama, and I have so thoroughly unnerved the federal government that they have banned me from volunteering disasters. Did y'all even know that you could be banned from disasters? That didn't work. So then FEMA hired me. Because apparently if you piss them off bad enough, they hire you and stick you in a room at the end of the corridor with no cell phone or access to internet. Because they it's called the Golden Shackles. I was broke at the time, and I didn't realize that it's called the Golden Shackles because they pay you so much money to neutralize you. They usually reserve it for hackers, but pretty proud of that. And by hiring me, the funny thing is that they had just left me alone in 2011, let me do my thing, and rabble rouse and help people, and just left me alone, then I would have, I'm sure, just gone away back to my life after a few years and whatever. But no, they had to just keep on with me. And people just kept on, and they banned me, and they just all that. And so by hiring me, ironically, they gave me, they legitimized me. Because then I can be like, oh, I work for FEMA. And they're like, oh, well, let's hire her. She knows something. I watched what they were doing from the inside. They eventually gave me a computer and they gave me access to all of the data for the Alabama tornadoes, because how dangerous could I be with a spreadsheet and a bunch of data? Oh, honey. Oh, very. And so then I got hired by New York State Homeland Security to go up and work Sandy. I worked for the New York City Housing Authority running the resilience. I created a $350 million stormwater management project, fully designed, that would have completely avoided most of the damages related to their last flood a few months ago. But there was a little politics played after it took me a year to raise $350 million. It turns out, while I was not raised with money, I am really good at talking old white people out of their money. So if you need money, let me know. Let me know. So this is my ask. This is my ask to my people, my allies, in case you got a company named that. This is my ask to you. I can unnerve the federal government, and I do it on a daily basis. FEMA is literally still trying to ban me from meetings. And they just should know I am not going away. And the more they do it, the more they piss me off. So now I'm coming for them. Not them, the good Americans that are working inside the system. Them, the system. I'm coming for the system. And I want you all to come for the system with me. And the way that we're doing that is, we don't necessarily these days have to take to the streets, although that's a lot of fun, and we will be doing that too. But we can take to our keyboards. And the media likes to show up when all of a sudden something blows up out of nowhere on Twitter or Facebook. They're like, what's happening? What's going on? What's this revolution being led? What's this reparations thing that's being talked about? So what I want you to do is, we're not ready to launch it yet, so let's don't be hashtagging and throwing out the climate reparations yet. But I do want you to put yourself on you can go and join me on any of these social medias, so that when we do launch this, which we will be doing when the zine, I'm just like a week away from getting the zine done. So that what's gonna happen is we're gonna blow up the internet with problems that we are no longer willing to sit idly by for. We demand disaster recovery reform because it affects, how many people has it affected? Raise your hands. Right? It's affecting us. We are tired and we are refused to wait, and now we're doing it today. No meetings, no talking about it, no more reports. Change it today. And it turns out it can't happen because I just helped literally get the Code of Federal Regulations law enacted just a couple of weeks ago for a disaster in Michigan. And not only did it help the state of Michigan go from 75 to 90%, but it affected all disasters for any community affected within a 2-year period across the entire United States, went from 75 to 90%. And that is because of this little girl from Alabama not sitting down and being quiet. So I need you all to keep in touch with me, because I bet that there are a whole lot of you that can also thoroughly unnerve the federal government. I know Amy's with me. So that is where it stands. Because what is happening with the pizza place, that is real. And it's happening today, and it's going to keep happening. And what's happening in every single neighborhood, everywhere in the United States. And here's what I'd like to throw out to you, to support your business and to support your efforts. We don't have anywhere for a dance party tonight. And everyone's like, no, what are we going to do? No dance party. Would you be able to host us for a dance party?
What?
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I was going to say.
You don't have to answer on the spot, but I just want to throw out, if you want a whole lot of drunk new organists spending a lot of money in your organization, we would really like to do that for you.
As long as we can do it with Eastside and Kindred together.
We do it whichever way you say.
When,
You make the rules. You tell us.
let's do it.
Let's do it then. All right. There we go. Now we gotta take the dance party.
Thank you. Please give Laura Clemens another round of applause. So I have goosebumps right now. I think we have some time for questions. Do we?
Yeah, it says 2:15, but that's a lie. It's supposed to be 2:45. I don't want to feel like we're being plotted against.
Right.
Ours is the only one that was cut 30 minutes short.
Ours is cut 30 minutes short.
2:40 should be 2. The rest of the session's in at 2:45.
So we have about 10 minutes. I want to open the floor for questions, but before we do, I just want to take some time out to thank the speakers today. Did you guys find those two speakers good? The Black Caucus is putting on some events, huh? All right, so I don't know if you guys know this, Laura is white. So that is our sister in arms, you know what I mean? She's out here fighting with us, but I did see a hand go up for the questions. So just keep the responses short and the questions short so we can get a lot of questions out. But the goal is to leave you guys thirsty for wanting more information. And my helpful team is going to be able to redirect you guys and keep the conversation going. But we're going to go ahead and keep the first question. Just say your name and where you're from, okay?
I'm Beth Boland. I'm from Cincinnati. We're working on a project that potentially could repair some of the wrongs. And what I would hate to see is this redlining continue. How do we engage the community to prevent that from happening now, maybe 5-10 years before that property is activated, so that we can make sure this doesn't keep happening? How can we as allies do that? How can we, we have a pretty active African American Chamber of Commerce, which we're reaching out to for support in our bigger plan, but I think that's a really important movement to do now, to get the motion now. So, do you have any suggestions?
Is that?
That's for you.
I would just say, you know, the main thing is to get people in the community involved. A lot of times whenever people will do things for the community, they'll just do it and think this will be good because we come up with good ideas. But everything you do needs to be with that community in mind. And the only way to do that effectively is to have meetings with people in that community and make sure that they're involved. You know, one of the things I told the developers who started on this project is that, man, like, this is gonna be unique, meaning you might take some L's, meaning you might take some losses, and don't act like you're not making money too. You know what I'm saying? So know you're gonna take some losses. Know there are gonna be people who won't agree with it. Know that, you know what I'm saying, you need to be transparent and say like, hey, not tell them, but let them know, like, you know, I'm getting some out of this too, and that's why I want to do it. You know what I mean? Because if you go into a community saying we're about to make it better for you, and really it's better for yourself, then you really aren't being transparent, and you can set yourself up for resentment and so many other things. But I would do that. One of the things I remember about when we first started this development, when we had our meeting with the city council, I think it was just John Pettis, myself, Quentin, and Sandina were the only black people in the room. And it's all these white people who never come to our community, who don't know anything about it, making a decision about what we should get, what we deserve, and how will it be for, you know what I'm saying, for us. You know what I mean? And so it's just so important that you find out who those people in the community are, who are community leaders, who have been there for a long time, and, you know, get them involved, you know, and make sure that they have a say in what happens around them.
Can I answer that? I think you need to identify, like, there are going to be some organizations like that that have done work. I mean, that have been doing work. So, like, JB just mentioned influence, like basically like influencers. If you have to translate it to social media or whatever. But yeah, if you got neighborhood associations, if you got recognized entities that are like boots on the ground, you know what I'm saying? I would flow through them and also bring the resources to bear, right? So like the free game, like people coming to the community want free game and they getting paid. You know what I'm saying? And like this is a impoverished community. They need money for their time, so that would be.
And the other thing that I would say is, so going back to the very beginning, land ownership matters, right? So land banking, like protecting and preserving for inter-community, doing what John Anderson is doing with like incremental development, getting within the neighborhood and the community, teaching how they have to be the developers, like within the community. There's usually, like in the disaster impacted communities, there's usually a mama that always knows everybody and everything, and she always knows anything you need. So if you can connect into the neighborhood and see like who is it that is best skilled at becoming an internal developer, and how you do that, and then also the money, right? Don't be like, oh, here's a great idea, best of luck to you. Bring the money to the table. So have an agency, have an entity that acts as the fiscal intermediary to go ahead and get the money and the resources in, so that you have those low interest, no interest loans, and there are huge amounts of resources through which the individual or the local neighborhood level cannot navigate. So go ahead and set up the money piece of it and how you're going to protect those land ownership assets.
So can I just mention one thing? So this community is currently being used as entirely industrial. There are 35 individuals who live in this community and they're homeless. We actually are hoping to restore the community that was destroyed in the 50s when the highway came through.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a really unusual situation. I don't have neighborhood associations that I can reach out to. What we have done to date is reach out to the surrounding ones.
We will surround you with support. We, the new urbanists, will surround you with support. You want to do the thing, we will help surround you with the support that you need to make it happen in the right way. That's what I can tell you.
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so we catch us with the alcohol and.
All right, I have a question in the back. Hold on.
Not a question, but a comment. Laura, we walked over here together. I want to make sure I did not miss this session. I know you were designated as a sister, which is an honor, but honestly, in our community, auntie, especially those that got your back, has a special label. You went out, Auntie Laura. Thank you. Everybody got an auntie that got your back. You got everybody's back.
That's right, that's right. Any other questions? All right. Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Auntie. Auntie Laura. And I just want to say that I am a member, I'm a resident of Oklahoma City. And these gentlemen that spoke, they were really being modest. So I want to share with you, Dr. Hughes.
Come on.
Yes. Engineering degree and Dr. Hughes. This man has worked tirelessly. And I was going to tell you this privately, but
Give him his
I
flowers.
have this out.
Give him his flowers.
He has really worked tirelessly for this community, and I am very proud of him. And he just has the temperament of a leader.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's how I see you. And so I just want everyone in this room to know that we have people right here. If you want to know anything about Oklahoma City, there's great models, what he's doing. If you want to help in any way, Dr. Hughes is a very good contact. DeAndre's sitting here quiet, but raise your hand. This young man is so plugged in, and I am just so excited to get to know you even more. And Councilwoman Nikki Nice, will you please stand? Because she is just outstanding. And so I'm just taking this out. These are champions of our community. JB, oh my goodness. So he is just an icon in this community. So these are the champions. These are some, there are others, but we have them and we're excited, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. Thank you, and are doing.
Shameless plug, if you want to see Ms. Nikki Nice, she will be speaking at our next session for the Black Caucus, talking about neighborhoods and economics, so you don't want to miss that.
Thank you. This is a question for JB. So I know you talked about the block party that to help bring the community together. I would love to hear more about your methods for community engagement and empowerment in the neighborhood, especially knowing the fact that it's a low-income neighborhood and people who have to work 2, maybe 3 jobs they can't afford the time and to put into making their neighborhood better as much as, local people.
So I mean, the engagement is really just. I'm fortunate because I've been in this community my entire life. I know people that are older than me, younger than me. You know what I'm saying? I the kind of person where as soon as I meet somebody, they can look at my head and say, "Oh, you must be so and so." I can tell by how your head is shaped. You know what I'm saying? So the relationships really help a lot, but also trying to use what I have, the resources that I have, the relationships I have, to kind of bridge those gaps and help where they can. And then also where they can't, I just do it myself. You know what I'm saying? And try to, you know, help and just, if it isn't there, then I'll do it myself, so.
Can I respond to that question, because I hear that a lot, when I hear people, they don't have the time, they're busy, one thing I've learned is people eat. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they come to you, I will go to them.
Yes.
I'll buy them breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yep.
And as many as I can to get the input, so don't, if people care, fine, meet them where they are. I was just letting them know the other day, same question came up, and sometimes if people cannot come to us, we have to go to them. If they're 5, 6, to me, the importance of just making sure that voices are heard, but one thing I've learned is everybody eats, and they make time to eat. So if you want to take out your time, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whatever works for you, sit down, have a conversation with multiple people, so that way they can go on and work their 2 or 3 jobs, but you have that conversation and get their input.
That's good.
Yes.
Can I make
All right, JB and Dr. Quinton, not that you don't already have 100 things on your plate, but if you need some encouragement, when I was teaching at the university, and VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, is incredibly diverse as in like not code word for black, but actually all people represented. And I had a development course, and even though Richmond's a majority black community with strong Hispanic, Asian, and Arabic populations, and I hang out with all my neighbors where I am, so and I could not find a black developer, and when I found one, even though we all look past some red signs, because I wanted that person there, and then anyway, corruption they were under in a year, and it was a bad example for my students. But what I was trying to say is I did an exhaustive search of literature, and I could not find a single textbook, zine, book, Twitter, blog, anything that was from a non-white and non-Asian, I found plenty of Asian representation, developer for the community. So it's just a hugely needed space, but you're already doing 1,000 needs. But I do think having the whole rap Grammy, for the students would really encourage them. And I think you could
Visiting
do
lecture
it
at
right
university.
now and be
You do, yeah.
successful. So.
Well, we'll consult his management, we'll get back.
Negotiate that contract.
Enjoy response.
I appreciate it. No, that's good.
One thing
Last
about
question.
community engagement, I just want to go back to the question before, is you have to tailor your engagement strategies to the community. If you don't, it will be disastrous. I'll give you, for instance, Block Party works really well here. But if you go to New Orleans in a black neighborhood and talk about a block party, they're not gonna come. And they won't come because that is not a social type. It's not really common. Now, we have what looks like block parties, but we don't call them block parties. So you can't call it that in a place like New Orleans. You have to figure out how we name that kind of gathering. One of them could be, I'm just going to a party by so-and-so's house, I'm going by my neighbor's house. My neighbor has a bed. So you have to tailor it, because I have seen people not show up to parties because block party is associated by people who are gentrifying the city. So in each community, no matter where you work, you've got to get in, you've got to understand the language, the customs, the culture, so that when you want to bring that intervention in, you do it in a way that is familiar to community.
Yeah. One of the first events we did in the community was an event called With Love, and the initial name was going to be For the East Side with Love, and we just shortened it and called it With Love, and now it's blossomed into its own nonprofit, right? And then the other one we did is Juneteenth Festival, So a lot of it, like I said, I'm fortunate because I live in the community and I understand it, and I know what we want and what we need, and if I don't, they tell me, let me know, if I ever go off the rails and do something crazy, right? but, you know, there are ways to, I guess, engage with whatever community it is. But if, like for instance, if I go to Daisy's community, like I can't go into her community and say, I'm just about to throw this event on the south side, it's gonna be dope, without talking to Daisy first, right? And I can go to Daisy and say, man, I have an idea for the south side. It may or may not work, I don't know. Here's what I have in mind. And then based on her knowledge of her community and what they like, she would say, yeah, this sounds dope, let's do it. But I don't just do it without her, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So.
So fortunately and unfortunately, this does conclude our redlining session. So give all of yourselves a round of applause.
And we will be having dance party tonight. I'm just saying, it's happening. So like, we will, on your app, like we can post updates, like, so just be like, keeping an eye out. We're gonna figure it out.
We're gonna have pizza and liquor, so make sure.
What more do you need?
And music, and music.
Yes. Good.
All right, so